So we recently posted a video on this channel in which Matt Fradd and I were talking about modesty, and we were basing it on Pope John Paul II's book, Love and Responsibility. I made the point in that video, it's so important that our motivation for modesty is coming from a proper sense of the beauty, goodness, and dignity of the body. We cover the body in a fallen world, not because the body is bad. This is so important. This idea that the body is bad is a heresy called Manicheism, which the Catholic Church has condemned repeatedly over the centuries. We don't cover the body because it's bad. We cover the body because it is so good. And we feel, or we should feel, an instinctive need to protect the goodness of the body from the degradation of those who would look upon the body and devalue it. This Manichean way of thinking that the body is bad, John Paul II himself says in his Theology of the Body that we must overcome these deep-seated habits of Manicheism, body bad, in the way of thinking and evaluating things. And this can creep in to the way we talk about modesty. And I want to give you an example. Recently, I read an article. It's online. It's from a reputable Catholic organization. It was talking about modesty in dress at Mass. I'm all for it. But what is the motivation for covering the body? This article mentioned that men should cover their hairy legs, and then it used the word hairy legs, ick. This is not the reason men should cover their hairy legs. If we're going to have a conversation about whether or not men should be wearing shorts to Mass, okay, we can have that conversation. But if one is going to argue that men should be wearing long pants at Mass, the argument, if it's to be a Catholic argument, must not, in any way, shape, or form, come from the perspective that men should cover their hairy legs because hairy legs are ick. That is an example of exactly what John Paul II is talking about when he says we must examine our thoughts and our attitudes to be sure that they aren't stemming from a Manichean devaluation of the body. I'm going to have more to say about that Manichean devaluation of the body in a moment. But let me first speak some words of compassion for this woman who wrote this article. That Manichean error, body bad, is easy to fall into. It's very easy to fall into because the alternative is very scary, very difficult, very threatening even. What do I mean? Let me give you a visual here to tell you what I mean, to show you what I mean. Maybe you've seen me do this in other videos, but I want to paint a picture. I want you to imagine that this is a painting of man and woman naked without shame, just as God made us to be in the beginning. It's the most beautiful painting we could possibly imagine. God looked at everything he made and said, "Behold, it is very good. It is very beautiful." And we know from the Theology of the Body of St. John Paul II, and of course from 2,000 years of Christian reflection, that this painting is an icon of divine mysteries. The body and only the body, says John Paul II, is capable of making visible what is invisible, the spiritual and the divine. That's why this is the most beautiful painting we can possibly imagine. Because more than anything in creation, the human body is meant to reveal the mystery of God. And that's why the enemy hates this painting. And he has aimed right from the beginning, the enemy has aimed all his poisonous arrows at this beautiful painting. And here's what happened to the painting with original sin. It has become terribly twisted up and distorted. Now, the temptation of Manicheism, which is so easy to fall into, is that we look at this painting in its crumpled up form, and what does it appear to be? Well, it looks like trash. So what do we think the solution is? Ick. Throw that away. Very easy temptation to fall into, so I have great compassion on the woman who wrote this article. But I'm also going to call this out as a serious error. A serious error. Christianity does not invite us to throw that away. In fact, John Paul II says, and let me quote him directly, he says, "We can see that the Manichean condemnation of the body might and may always be a loophole to avoid the requirements set in the gospel." It shouldn't be ick, cover that up or throw that away. Rather, what the gospel invites us to, throwing it away is the loophole. What the gospel invites us to is to let Christ come in to what we might consider ick, right? What we might consider something to throw away, what we might consider cover that up, it's ick. No, the gospel invites us into this distorted, diseased idea, this distorted image of the body, so that Christ can uncrumple the painting for us, so that we can see yet again the beauty, the splendor, the glory, the dignity of the human body as male and female. And in this broken world, in seeing the true beauty and splendor of the body, hairy legs and all, we can recognize people might not know how to honor and reverence the dignity of the body, so we need to cover certain aspects of the body to honor the body's goodness properly. That is the motivation. That is the only properly Catholic, biblical, Christian motivation for covering the body, to honor its dignity, not to cover its ick. The body is not ick. The body is beautiful, hairy legs. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Jesus had hairy legs, right? And Jesus's hairy legs are a revelation of the mystery of God. It's called the incarnation. What is our motivation for modesty? It has to be, if it's to be true modesty as a virtue and not some kind of prudery of covering up the body and masking Manicheism with virtue, it has to be motivated by an appreciation of the beauty, splendor, and dignity of the theological glory revealed through the human body. Let me quote again from John Paul II. He says, "The adequate interpretation of Christian teaching about the body must be absolutely free from Manichean elements in thought and attitude. The Manichean way of understanding and evaluating the human body is essentially foreign to the gospel," he says. And here he gets into the essential difference. Here's the difference. He says, while for the Manichean mentality, the body and sexuality constitute an anti-value, basically body, sexuality, bad from the Manichean perspective. That's what he means by anti-value. For Christianity, on the contrary, the body and sexuality always remain a value not sufficiently appreciated. If Manichaeism says body bad, sex evil, Christianity says body so good, sexuality so glorious in God's plan that we have yet to fathom it. And because we can't fathom it in this fallen world fully or completely, or let's put it this way, because so many people don't, We cover the body to protect it from the degrading looks of those who don't know how to appreciate it. Christian modesty, we veil the holy. Never cover that because it's ick. I hold that out as a gentle challenge to that person, again, with compassion and understanding for how easy it is to fall into that, throw that away, because that's easier, right? That's a heck of a lot easier than letting the Lord come into, why do I consider hairy legs ick? I got to let the Lord come into that Manicheanly, coined a new word, Manicheanly based attitude. I have to let the Lord come in and untwist that, uncrumple it so I can see and appreciate it rightly. We really need to ask ourselves this question. What voice are we listening to in our evaluation and understanding of the body? Right from the beginning, we started listening to the wrong voice, and God calls us out. He says, who told you you were naked? Who told you that's bad? Who told you that's something to cover up? You've eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You're listening to a voice that doesn't come from my heart. May we, just say it this way, may we all come to see the beauty and splendor of God revealed through Jesus' body and our bodies, including our hairy legs. Amen.